Christopher's going to talk about front-end development and new integration for ArchES. So I'm very excited about this.
Hi, I'm Christopher at Byrd, if you've seen me on forums or the Slack channels or anything like that. A lot of the talks that you've heard today have gone a specific direction, usually kind of, deep dives into a specific thing. This will be different. It's a pretty quick, just gloss over a bunch of stuff that's currently in progress as far as version 8 is concerned. So hang in there with me. It's the last talk of the day. We got this. All right, so this presentation is fueled by me, Byrd, you've seen me, that's me, coffee, and the dogmatic belief of dwindling attention spans, right? We're not getting any more patient as a people. So bear with me. This 40-20 thing is that I've got 20 minutes to present 40 slides, and this is only slide number 2. So strap in. All right, so here's how this talk is going to go. Start with the introduction that already happened. I'm going to talk about a module system change, then Webpack, the ArchES object, front-end routing, the style guide, a small change to ArchES dependencies, and then a quick recap. So let's dive right in. Module system, right? The king is dead, long live the king. Require.js, as far as version 8 and onward is concerned, is dead. We pulled it out, and we have replaced it with the much more standard ES6 modules, right? What does this look like? Well, first off, what was Require.js? Well, it's still around, but no longer in ArchES. It's a module loader, right? It's there to provide automatic dependency handling, and it keeps large applications orderly. You can see what it looks like over here with the define and then return from this larger function. And it works, and it's great, and it's just old and at its end of life, and it's been replaced by more efficient things. So why remove it? Well, as I just said, it has reached its end of life. It's officially been EOL'd. It's a legacy pattern. But more specifically to the ArchES project, it forced us to adopt a very specific paradigm with our Webpack bundling logic, which has resulted, if anyone has ever built an ArchES application or a project, a slow build time, depending on what you're running, and large bundle sizes. You're talking 700 megs. I apologize, DevOps folks. This is largely on me. But, so that's that. What do you need to do, just as of right now? You need to, as far as version 8 is concerned, change your import pattern, right? So a few slides ago, we saw the pattern where there's this define function at the top, and then you're returning some stuff at the bottom. Now just do regular JavaScript stuff. You can Google what ES6 module syntax is. I'm sure you've seen it. You're all developers, mostly. And here's what it is, right? So just anything that was being returned from that require or define function, just export it as default from your file, and then change how you're importing stuff, and all the stuff in the middle should be fine, with a few very specific caveats that are in the update to V8 guide, the documentation there. But I'm not going to touch those here, because who has the time? But it shouldn't affect 99% of you. There is one small gotcha. You might think, oh, well, my project is super vanilla. I'm not doing anything on the front end. I don't need to update any files. Well, you might be wrong. In earlier versions of ArchES, 7.6 and before, we would supply you with a default report template, right? It's probably in your ArchES application if you haven't removed it yet. And that will cause a problem for you because it's still using Require.js. So you will need to update or remove that file, even if you've done no front-end work at all in your project. So that's one small gotcha there with the module system. Moving on from there, so I briefly mentioned Webpack earlier and Require.js forcing a specific pattern. Well, because we dropped Require.js, wow, that's hard to say, it's let us update our Webpack configuration, right? In short, we added chunking. And by discarding the support for AMD style modules, which is what Require.js is, we're able to decrease bundle size from around 700 megabytes to around 20. And build time to, I'm not sure if anyone, show of hands, has anyone in this room successfully run build production? One there, a few there. Good on ya.
No, I'm joking. No, seriously.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly. No, build production for any version before 7.6 requires a very beefy machine to run, if at all, right? It would sometimes take up to 2 hours to run the darn thing because you're minifying the code and it's dealing with these huge blocks of code that it's trying to minify. Anywho, build production works now as far as 8, and you can run it on a typical, I want to say 8 gig AWS machine in less than 5 minutes. That's great. This is wonderful. And because of all these wins here, just a short little note at the bottom, we've included source maps in our front-end code now, so it should make debugging a lot easier, and you're not having to chase down just random strings you see on the page to find the associated component. Just to dive into what's actually happened with Webpack very briefly, pulling out AMD modules and moving to ES6 syntax basically has made it to where Webpack uses pointers now. So you could think, because of our very specific setup, that your bundle has a bunch of entry points. Pretty much any JS JavaScript file is an entry point, and each one of those entry points was bundled with copies of whatever file that it had declared within it, right? Essentially AMD-style string lookups, if you know what I'm talking about. Pulling those things out, you get a graph of pointers, and that makes your life much, much easier, which means no matter what your entry point is, it's still just going to point to one file somewhere. So that's what's happening as far as Webpack goes. And what do you need to do? Nothing. Assuming that you've refactored your JavaScript files away from require.js, you just got to upgrade to V8, get your new Webpack thing, and it should be running just fine. Moving from there, kind of a hard, abrupt left turn to killing the Arches object. What is the Arches object? It's imported like an external library, but it really is just application level trickery, right? And it's used largely for piping data across the stack. I included a little example of what you've probably seen it used for. Import arches from arches, and it's most commonly used these days for URLs, right? Which is there. What's inside of the Arches object? Front end I18N strings. But that pattern has largely been replaced in V8 and onward versions with Vue 3 getText. Settings. A subset of settings, right? We're not exposing all settings in the Arches object. That should be replaced with API calls. Now is the time. We don't have a glorified settings API, but you can build one, and I'm sure we will build one at some point. And URLs, it's the last bastion. It's the last thing that's living in this Arches object. And thank goodness it's changed in V8. So why kill the thing? Well, it is confusing, right? It acts like a node module, but it's not. It is a bit of an anti-pattern. It is bloated and heavy. If you've ever looked at the Arches object, it is several hundred lines long of just stuff that gets moved around, strings and settings and all of this that we don't need. And there's better ways to pipe data across the stack, which I will get to later. And it's hanging around as legacy support. So is it dead yet? Short answer, no. Longer answer, what you need to do to handle this change in V8? Nothing. The Arches object lives for now, unadulterated. You can still use it in all of your applications. We will remove it in a future version though, so don't get too close to it if you haven't already. And of course, any new code, prefer to use the new patterns. Vue 3 getText for I18N, settings API for getting any subset of settings you may need, and generate Arches URL, which I will get to momentarily. Cross-stack routing, I guess I'll get to it now. The old way. So let's say you built a route in your project, and you want to access that route on the front end. Well, you had to declare the route in urls.py. Then you had to add it to Arches urls.htm and functionalize it, sort of like make a function string if you need to interpolate the route at all. Then you import the Arches object into your JavaScript file, grab the route, invoke the function if it's a function, right, and then use the route. That's a lot of friction just to be able to hit an endpoint, right? Well, that way is dead. Don't use it anymore. As a V8, there is a new way to do things. The new way is basically declare a route in urls.py. Import a fancy special function that is supplied via Arch's core called generate Arch's URL. Invoke the function and use the route. I thought I had I thought I had an example. I don't. How it works, every time the application starts, there's going to be a script that iterates urls.py, does some complex regex, and writes out to a file in a new directory in V8 called frontend configuration, and it's going to write out to urls.json. Every time Webpack rebuilds, it's going to read that JSON file that's been generated and make its contents globally available. And the fancy little function that gets imported into whatever JavaScript file you need, it's going to accept the name of the URL and a dictionary of named path variables. It's going to match the path and variable names to the route, interpolate it, and return that interpolated value. I cannot believe I had a picture there that actually showed what this looks like. Find me later if you're interested. It's pretty slick, pretty easy to get your head around. What do you need to do to embrace this thing? Nothing. The Arches object still exists in V8. Your current routing pattern, the old way, quote unquote, right? Where you have to declare stuff in Arches URLs at HTML, you still could do that. Don't, you shouldn't, but you could. You should use the new pattern in any new work that you're building. Moving on from there, since we are in front-end land, the front-end style guide. We have a style guide, sort of. It lives there. You can see that the link is currently a pull. It's a pull request. It hasn't been merged into Arch's documentation yet. It's a superset of the view style guide, which means it's built on top. If there's anything not answered in the Arches style guide, refer to the view style guide. It'll tell you. And it's focused on best practices, yada yada. If you've seen the view integration guide, that thing has been slimmed down and now style is in the style guide. And it's made to enhance the overall quality. I'm not going to read that last point, but you get it, right? A few just broad stroke excerpts from the style guide. We have a recommended folder structure for your source folder. Essentially, the top level delineated by Arch's entities, reports, widgets, cards, etc. If you need to, you don't have to, right? If you're building a specific plugin or something that does one thing and maybe doesn't live in any of those folders, well, don't force it, right? Just have a top level component. But at every level, files with subcomponent names should be in a named folder. Subcomponents go into the components folder, and shared components are elevated to the highest level of their ancestors, users, the things that are using them, right? A simple example here is Arch's component lab, where you can see it's delineated by widgets. Inside that is a date widget. A date widget has two lower order components. So it's got a components folder with the editor and the viewer widget. And yeah, it's in a named folder. The folder is named after the component. It's nice. A few other things from the style guide. Don't do this. Don't use calc. That is verboten. It will cause you a headache. It has been us many times. Don't hard code single side offsets. That's a lot to say. That's a fancy way of just saying, like, don't use margin left. Anyone know why? I didn't. Yeah. Handling RTL and LTR languages, right? If you are just doing margin left or whatever, it will bite you. Instead, use stuff like margin inline start. Don't hard code colors. Hey, who built that thing? That guy should be fired. It was me, and I was in a hurry, and I was hard coding some colors. And that's what it looks like in dark mode. And that isn't great. It looks great in light mode. But yeah, prefer to use theme colors, right? Prime View comes with themes. Arches applications now come with themes. Use your theme colors. Don't hard code them. And don't do manual text interpolation. I'm not sure what I meant by that. I will get back to you guys on that one. Okay. So this might be a bit controversial. It's the last little thing in the style guide. And in case you disagree, cool. Come talk to me about it, right? The style guide has not landed. It's not been merged in. So these are largely just the rantings of a madman, this guy here. So if you disagree, let's chat. It's a living document. Your input is valuable, right? The community. But use rim instead of pixels, right? And this is everywhere. This is for borders. This is for border radius, margin, padding, not just font size, right? Non-pixel-based font sizing is it's a glass of water, right? Like, nobody's going to argue that, oh, no, I really want to use pixel font sizing. I think it's a bit of a bigger push to say, don't use pixels at all. And I have reasoning for it. And basically, they're here, and I'm not going to read those out loud. But essentially, improved accessibility, and it's a bright line rule, right? Once you start throwing in, well, you could use pixels here, but not there. And if the component contains text, no, it's that. It's currently in the pull request for the style guide. I'm not sure that it's gonna go in. It probably will, I hope it will. But if you have any problems, any major reservations, come talk to me. It should be fun. And then what do you need to do about the style guide? Nothing. Don't refactor your old code, right? That is, I don't know. To me, that isn't a good use of time unless you have a different reason to refactor your old code, right? Just going back and refactoring things for the sake of style guide isn't great. Well, you should check out the style guide. And it's really meant to start a discussion. It's still a pool, right? It hasn't been merged, and it's a living document regardless. Even after it's merged, it can be changed, right? This isn't holy scripture or anything. So chat about it. Forums, Slack, find me, Outback, after the talk. I don't know. One last little thing, front-end dependencies. There was a small change happening in 8. We are exact pinning Arch's core front-end dependencies, right? So essentially you can see these all have carets over on the left, right? Well, now they don't, right? And we're doing this basically to ensure consistency. We, as the Farallon development team, have been a few times, even now with some libraries, specifically the prime view libraries that are still in development, being different on different people's machines and causing all sorts of grief. And that's happened because of caret pinning, right? This sort of that. So essentially, to simplify debugging, all of that fun stuff, we're pulling away the we're pulling away the automatic upgrading of dependencies in favor of, for each release, probably not patch releases, probably minor and above, manually upgrading those things and adding it to package.json. It's got some increased friction there, but I think the cost is acceptable for the game. And then what do you need to do? Nothing. We're not enforcing this at the project level, but you should probably have a conversation about it in your organization around the merits and the increased friction for it. All right. A little recap. So, in short, required.js has been removed in favor of ES6. Arch's V8 has greatly increased Webpack performance. There's a new pattern for cross-stack routing. We have a style guide, and we are going to exact pin our front-end dependencies from here on. We've got some documentation. It's there. Yay, go look at it. Really only one of them's ours. The other two, just look at them. It's the official Vue style guide and some prime Vue documentation. And that's it. I won't be taking any questions. Thank you. One last minute thing, basically to hit 40 slides instead of 39. Check out the component lab. Do it. We have a mostly there widget pattern. I would love your feedback, good or bad. We are also starting to get other components in the component lab. Right now we're starting on a generic card form pattern to replace the Arches card, which I'd love to talk to people about. And the stuff that exists in component lab will look different depending on where you use it. Just the nature of Arches, SCSS being used in core Arches versus if you were to make like a standalone page that is presented outside of the Arches Chrome. All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Christopher. And I don't know. I think it's I always love the energy in your talks. I think fair play coming in, flying in after a long haul flight, doing an entire day, and taking the last stop of the day. So thank you for making that really interesting. I really enjoyed that.
Appreciate it.
A lot of interesting topics. So I spent a couple of questions at least. How are we doing? There we go. Stuart.
Just a small question. I was wondering why for the URLs.json you don't use an API call. Why build it as part of the production build?
That's fair. And
just also for developer hygiene, you know, it would be nice if you add the URL and then refresh your application and it's there.
that's fair. I'm trying to remember the reason I had to not just have it behind an API. And I'm forgetting it. Oh! Overhead. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could do it at startup. I mean, it's the same thing. You do it at startup, but just have it cached by the application instead of as static file.
That is a fair pattern, and there could be additional overhead. This hasn't been stress tested to the level of hundreds or thousands of URLs per page. So it may slow down on that specific file read. So it's up in the air. Right now, this is the pattern that is landed, but that is a potential way to take things, surely.
I had a cheeky question too, is like...
I hope I have a cheeky answer.
Have you applied all the style changes yourself in Core Arches in V8?
Have I applied style changes?
I mean, if I search, can I find still pixels in your CSS?
Yes, you can and you will. This is for new stuff going forward.
Okay.
Not in the new stuff. Go
Not in the new stuff. If it's in Component Lab, there won't be pixels.
I thought it was quite nice, but I was just wondering, like, is it like already applied across the board? But fair.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just had a comment, which is that some people might have noticed in Slack that I decided to just try and see what happened with the 7.5 instance that's got some very fiddly front-end stuff going on, and I have to say I was surprised that it was quite straightforward, which is no shade of anyone. I was thinking there's a lot of changes here, so like full kudos, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So thank you.
Of course.
Owen?
Were you doing compliments?
Yeah.
I basically did a few upgrades from 6.2 to 7.6.
Yeah.
They were like buttery smooth also. I was surprised as well, like, especially also the migrations. I was like, come back in 2 hours. It was like done in 5 minutes.
You upgraded at the right time. That's not all of us had buttery smooth transitions.
I was honestly surprised that I got the credibility. And the question I had about builds as well is like, I saw the page like, if the build can last until 45 minutes, I'm like, this is going to be fast. But I never had builds longer than 1 or 2 minutes, so I was really surprised even in the older versions, like 7.3 and 7.4, they were always fast.
Were you building production or development? I can't imagine a production build running so quickly the old way.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised.
Yeah.
We are too.
Yeah, we are too. You must have a very powerful machine you're running this on.
Yeah. HPC, yeah. Sorry, Owen.
Probably sort of maybe a bit off topic, but I was just wondering if you're keeping an eye on the roll down developments
On
by roll down, the bundler by Evan Yu, and Zero One, because it's going to become the standard for Vue in future. It's not ready for it yet,
Interesting.
but it's very, very quick. So you could probably get your 5 seconds down to 0.5 seconds.
All right. I've not been checking it out, but I'll put it on my radar.
Yeah, he's got a new organization called Void Zero, where he's got a few toolchain things, and that's one of them.
I got you. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one more, which is, what's the, because it's come up a couple of times today, what's the intended scope of the component library?
Oh, the intended scope is front-end components, period.
Aha!
Yeah, no, reusable generic front-end components.
But I think maybe even beyond that, it's
Sorry, that's a dumb question.
trying to arrive at a pattern and a set of components specifically to supersede the knockout-based components that are currently assigned to Arch's resource model and resource model things. So widgets, cards, you know,
Reports.
reports, yes, it's precise. So it's really about centralizing those things so that we can, you know, reuse them like in Alexis Provenance example, as in Lingo, you know, we are using those because they meet the Arch's resource model.
And I guess to expand on that, the component lab is just that, it's a lab. It's a development playground, and once anything gets finalized enough, it will likely go into its own package,
That's
something
right.
like Arch's widgets.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We named it that to make
I
it
did want to
clear
read
that this is where we're trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
It's not what it's going to forever be.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So effectively, it's targeting what's there now, trying to provide the next generation. Of
That's a
work.
great way.
In short, that and some bells and whistles around it, if we can.
Okay, awesome. Sounds great. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.